Hey, what's up guys? In this video we will talk about hyperlapses. And so to start this video off, we need to clarify what a hyperlapse is. So a hyperlapse is a moving time-lapse, and a time-lapse is a photography or a filming technique where you shoot at very low frame rates. But I'll just show you what it looks like. And you probably have to admit that it looks pretty cool, right? So basically you can say this is the opposite to shooting at slow motion. And yes, you can do that with your phone. And you can do that with every phone, so no matter what phone you have. An example would be to shoot at a frame rate of 1 frame per second. And if you do this for 10 minutes and then you play the video back at 25 frames per second, well, then you have a video clip that's 24 seconds long and it should look somewhat like this. And this is what a very basic time-lapse looks like. And a hyperlapse is basically the same thing as a time-lapse, but with the difference that you also move your camera whilst you are recording. And I've created quite a few hyperlapses, and I have to say that I really like the look of it. So when it comes to creating a hyperlapse, you have a few options. The first one is the old school way. You put your camera on a tripod, activate the grid and search for a prominent spot in your frame. You put this prominent spot at a spot of your frame where you can replicate its position. So for example, I like to use the upper intersection of the lines when the grid is activated. So when you have found the prominent spot and also placed it at a position where you can replicate it, then you can start to take your first photo. And after you've taken that, you just walk a tiny step forward and frame the shot just as you did the last one. Then you take another step forward, frame the shot again, and so on. And as you probably have noticed already, this is a very effortful way of doing a hyperlapse. And this is also my least favorite way of doing it. And you could basically do the exact same thing with a monopod, but to be honest, this would be just as effortful, just maybe a little lighter. And the results you can get from these methods are outstanding. If you get the framing right, the results can be absolutely amazing. The only problem is you have to get the framing absolutely perfect. Otherwise it will look very choppy and wobbly and not that professional at all. So this takes practice. If you plan to take your hyperlapses that way, you could do that by just using the stock camera app. Try to get the exposure as constant as possible, so lock it, but this should work no problem. Another disadvantage of this way is the post-production. If you shoot it that way, you have to assemble your moving time-lapse in an editing program afterwards. So basically you just import the individual images, turn the duration down of an individual image of like 1/25th of a second, and hope that you got the shot perfectly. If you do it like that, nest your sequence and use some sort of stabilization like warp stabilizer inside of Premiere Pro. This can massively improve the quality of your hyperlapse. But there is a second way of shooting hyperlapses, and that's what I prefer and that's what I always use. So the way I like to produce my hyperlapses is by using a gimbal. And in my case, I am using a DJI Osmo Mobile 3, but you can use basically whatever you have. Just mount your phone on your gimbal and make sure that you get the balance properly. Switch into time-lapse mode on your iPhone and you can start walking. When doing it like that, you need to make sure that you have a more or less straight way that you can walk. Otherwise it won't look as nice, but it will still look very good. But just try out a few different hyperlapses. And if you want to step up that wow effect even further, you need to invest a little money in an app called Moment Pro Camera app. And this works on iOS and on Android, so no matter what phone you have, this is always going to work. So when you open up the app, go to the right corner and tap on the button next to Preset. There you need to pick Time-Lapse. Next up, tap in the upper middle part of your screen where you can read the word Effect. Tap twice until you have the motion blur setting. Below that you can dial in the interval of your photos. I like to use a 1 second interval. And at the bottom you can dial in the exposure that you like. I like to dial it in before I start shooting so that I can lock it afterwards and so that it won't be changing during my recording. And after you have dialed in all the settings as you like them, you can actually save those settings as a preset for your future hyperlapses that you want to create. And the next thing is you just have to press the record button and start walking. The app will do everything else for you, which is absolutely awesome. And after you got the shot, just go to your clips, select the one that you want to export, click export. I like to use H.264, use 4K or max quality, and then I like to use 25 frames per second and click export. By making the hyperlapses like this and having your motion blur enabled, you will get those super cool looking flying hyperlapses. And it's actually super simple to achieve. It even works without a gimbal, at least to a certain point. It definitely won't be that perfect and that cinematic as the one with the gimbal, but I also really like the effect and I like the look that it gives me. But that's basically it for this video. I hope you found it helpful and I would like to see your results. Just try out what I told you and share your results with me. Make sure to post them or send them to me. And as always, if you guys have any further questions, please let me know.